As Hollywood proves to us time and time again, the process of getting a movie not merely greenlit but shot, put through post-production and actually released to audiences is absolutely hellish. It's miraculous that so many great or even basically good movies actually get made, because every single day in the film business, promising projects are shut down for a multitude of reasons. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie for What Culture, and these are 10 movies that just got cancelled. Number 10, Golden. Last summer, the brilliant Michael Gondry shot Golden, a coming-of-age musical biopic based on the childhood of musician Pharrell Williams. The crackerjack ensemble cast included Kelvin Harrison Jr., Halle Bailey, Davine Joy Randolph, Brian Tyree Henry, Quinta Brunson, Janelle Monáe, Tim Meadows, Missy Elliott, and Andre 3000, and principal photography seemed to go off without a hitch. However, back in February, just 3 months before the film's planned release, Gondry and Williams issued a joint statement that Golden was being permanently shelved after they realised, quote, there wasn't a path forward in the editing room. Despite this clearly implying that the pair were disappointed with the outcome of shooting, reports indicate that Golden test screened very well and even had awards potential. However, rather than try to force the film's release, Universal has opted to eat the $20 million production loss to maintain their creative partnership with Williams. It's rare for a fully shot film to be scrapped during post-production, and virtually unheard of for it to happen when said film is apparently rather good. Absolutely shocking. Number 9, The Graveyard Book. The Graveyard Book is a young adult fantasy novel by Neil Gaiman that was released in 2008, revolving around a boy who is adopted and raised by ghosts residing in a graveyard after his family are murdered. Gaiman's widely praised novel was initially announced for a film adaptation way back in 2009, though no substantial headway was made until July 2022, when Mark Forster was attached to direct. However, last September, it was confirmed that Disney had decided to put the adaptation on hold after sexual misconduct allegations were leveled against the author. While The Graveyard Book is technically only paused rather than officially cancelled, given that more accusers have stepped forward in recent months and most of the planned Gaiman adaptations are being paused or outright shelved, it does seem incredibly unlikely that the family-friendly Disney will move forward with this movie. It's reasonable to assume that this one has been quietly cancelled among many of the other Gaiman films and TV shows that were in development when the allegations first surfaced. Number 8, Black Mirror Bandersnatch. While you'd be correct in thinking that the Black Mirror spin-off movie Bandersnatch was released back in 2018, its interactive nature also placed it in a rather vulnerable position, as we've recently come to fully appreciate. With its branching narrative allowing viewers to make choices which impact the story, Bandersnatch marked one of Netflix's first forays into interactive entertainment. Though by 2023, the streamer had largely decided to abandon this content model. Bandersnatch initially remained on the platform, yet on May 12th of this year, Netflix decided to remove it entirely, as a result of updating their app's user interface and removing all interactive functionality. And so, without a physical media or VOD release of any kind, Netflix has effectively erased Bandersnatch from existence. And even those prepared to wade into the murky depths of piracy to preserve Bandersnatch don't have it easy, as the interactive, segmented nature of the film makes it a difficult experience to perfectly replicate outside of Netflix. Divisive though Bandersnatch was, it's nevertheless depressing to see Netflix so thoughtlessly dispose of a fascinating piece of experimental fiction, developed by one of their most talented creatives, Charlie Brooker. Number 7, Armor Wars. In December 2020, Disney announced Armor Wars, a new Marvel Cinematic Universe TV series focused around Rhodey/War Machine as he grapples with Tony Stark's tech falling into the wrong hands. By September 2022, however, Armor Wars had been reworked into a feature film instead, and was set to take place after the events of Secret Invasion, with Walton Goggins on board to reprise the role of villain Sonny Burch from Ant-Man and the Wasp. But the central personnel were largely radio silent on the project until early 2025, when Marvel Studios executive Nate Moore revealed that Armor Wars had been put on the back burner and wasn't a priority for the MCU moving forward. While Moore added that this doesn't strictly mean it wouldn't ever get made, given the mediocre response to Secret Invasion, the lack of mainstream audience interest in the general Armor Wars concept, and Kevin Feige's recent decision to focus on quality over quantity, it genuinely feels like this thing has been soft scrapped. If a film as good as Thunderbolts can only perform modestly at best at the box office, there's really no hope of an Armor Wars movie making much of a dent. Number 6. Aurora. In March 2022, the great Kathryn Bigelow was announced to be directing an adaptation of screenwriter David Koepp's novel Aurora, which follows a mother and son as they attempt to survive a solar storm which plunges the world into darkness. Netflix was set to produce the project to the tune of more than $100 million, but last year reports emerged that Bigelow had quit the film months prior, resulting in the streamer cancelling it altogether. These reports suggest that Bigelow bristled with Netflix over their desire to skew away from funding auteur-driven films and create more broad, accessible content, which presumably clashed with Bigelow's more considered vision for the film. All the same, it's surprising that Netflix killed Aurora outright, given the success and acclaim of Koepp's novel and the potential for it to be adapted into a hit Netflix original with the right approach. Bigelow didn't waste much time lining up a new project though, partnering again with Netflix on an untitled political thriller starring Idris Elba and Rebecca Ferguson, which wrapped shooting late last year. Number 5. Sergeant Rock. Last September, it was announced that Luca Guadagnino was set to direct a film based on the DC Comics character Sergeant Rock, a World War II soldier who led a ragtag band of comrades through the battlefields of Europe. Guadagnino was initially seeking to reunite with his queer star Daniel Craig on the project, though by early 2025, Craig had been replaced with Colin Farrell, with shooting expected to begin in late 2025. However, this past April, The Wrap reported that Warner Brothers had decided to scrap Sergeant Rock. Yet this wasn't due to creative differences or business reasons. It was actually down to scheduling, because with the war film's many exterior scenes, it needed to start filming this summer, and that simply wasn't going to happen. Though follow-up reports suggest that the studio could circle back to Sergeant Rock next year, there's no indication that Guadagnino, who works at a fast pace and has a full plate of potential projects, will stick around for it, let alone Colin Farrell. Given the rather dire prospects for superhero movies outside of the established brand names, it's tough to blame Warner Brothers for letting this one go, even if Rock is about as far away as DC could get from the superhero genre in their library. Number 4. Love Child. Todd Solondz is one of the boldest and most imaginative independent filmmakers of the last 30 years. His darkly comedic dramas Welcome to the Dollhouse and Happiness remain in cult faves to this very day. And last year, Solondz was announced to be directing his first new film since 2016, Love Child. The blackly comedic drama was set to star Elizabeth Olsen as a woman trapped in an abusive marriage, whose 11-year-old son plots to kill his father so that his mother can marry a handsome stranger instead. Despite the hilarity of the premise and getting Olsen and Charles Melton attached, it was sadly revealed late last year that the project fell apart mere weeks before shooting was meant to begin due to a loss of promised funding. And so, while Solondz believes that Love Child could get made in the future, he also doesn't sound particularly optimistic. Given that the director's movies tend to make very little money, it's at least easy to appreciate why he's struggled to find new investors. Sad though it is. Number 3. The Shrinking of Treehorn. The Shrinking of Treehorn is a beloved 1971 children's book from Florence Parry Heidi, revolving around a young boy who begins shrinking one day, all while his parents barely notice. In June 2019, Ron Howard was announced to be adapting the book into what would be his first foray into animated filmmaking. Though initially set to release theatrically on November 10th, 2023, by 2022 the film had moved to Netflix, with Howard still set to produce and direct. However, last summer, What's on Netflix reported from their own sources that the project had been quietly canned by Netflix for unspecified reasons. And given that we haven't heard a single thing about the movie in the 3 years since it was announced, the report certainly tracks. Howard has always been kept very busy as a filmmaker though, so it's likely just a matter of time before he announces the next movie he's working on. Number 2. Tangled. Last December, Disney confirmed the seemingly inevitable news that they were developing a live-action remake of the animated smash hit Tangled, with Michael Gracie on board to direct. Yet within mere days of the recent live-action Snow White remake flopping at the box office, Disney announced that they were putting their Tangled remake on hold. Now, while it remains to be seen if Tangled will ever be resurrected, it's fair to say that the odds aren't looking good. What with Snow White clearly spooking Disney by proving to them that their conveyor belt of Disney princess remakes aren't bulletproof at the box office after all. Complicating matters is the fact that Tangled isn't a movie that can be produced modestly, like, say, the $100 million Lilo and Stitch remake. Rapunzel's hair alone will require extensive VFX work, alongside Steed's sidekick Maximus and the lush land of Corona. Given that the animated Tangled cost a mind-boggling $260 million back in 2010, a live-action equivalent would likely be one of the most expensive films ever produced by Disney. And as recent history demonstrates, there's no guarantee of it being a hit. Plus, as Disney has largely remade all of their most beloved animated films by this point, it makes sense that they'd start being a little more discerning about which ones they move forward with. A Frozen remake, though, is surely inevitable sooner rather than later. Number 1. The Trashers. Cooper Raiff has had one of the most impressively meteoric career trajectories of any rising filmmaker in recent years, having directed 2 acclaimed dramedy films by the age of 25. At the age of 28 presently, Raiff has 2 more projects in post-production, the film See You When I See You and the TV series Hal and Harper. Apparently not one to slow down, Raiff was also recently gearing up to shoot his 4th film, The Trashers, a crime drama starring David Harbour and Cooper Hoffman. However, back in January, Raiff confirmed that The Trashers was effectively dead due to a lack of funding. Raiff added that the script required a large budget, and given that Raiff's prior films have both been incredibly low-fi affairs, perhaps investors weren't quite convinced that he could handle a much bigger bag. Though Raiff desperately wants the movie to happen, he's not optimistic about its chances, noting that he doesn't think it will ever come to fruition.